Good afternoon, guys. So we are here today and we're going to get to meet Bella Chaffey. Bella Chaffey is a young lady who lives out in Washington State. We're going to learn more about her, but she's pretty remarkable. She's young and she is fierce. She started a brilliant nonprofit organization that's all about helping and encouraging people to be an organ donor. So I'm not going to tell more about her. But I can't wait till she gets here. Ah, she's here. I'm going to bring you over, Bella.
Hi,
Hey, hey there, Bella.
how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good.
Oh,
Good.
you look wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
To tell the people, we've not met face to face as yet, right?
Oh,
But we've had an awesome conversation on the phone and I've learned some things about you. I was just kind of teeing it up and introducing who you were. I want to tell you thank you so much for your time and tell tell us where you are right now, Bella.
where? I live in Kirkland, Washington, and I'm just in my office right now at home.
Oh, yes. And Kirkland, Washington, is that near Seattle or for us who are not from the West Coast?
Yes, yes. I'm like 15, 20 minutes from Seattle.
Awesome. Awesome. So, Bella, you and I met through a common person, Kirsten, who told me, man, you need to meet this gal. Can you hear me? I'm hearing feedback.
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Are you on your phone?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. Is there another computer on as well with this? Are there two of them?
No. I have my computer next to me, but it's off.
Okay, I was just wondering what the feedback was. That's all right. We'll figure it out. No, you're not doing anything wrong. It's just, hey, we're talking clear across the country. So, Bella, tell us a little bit about what was the impetus to you starting your 501c3.
Yeah, so I started Alexander's Hope because my brother, when he was, well, I guess kind of in short, when he was 19 years old,
I want you to tell us. Yeah.
yeah, he suffered from an undiagnosed and then misdiagnosed heart condition, which caused him to, down the line, need a heart transplant,
Mm-hmm.
age 19. And through that, we saw a number of things. One of which is when you get on the transplant list and you're waiting to get a transplant, it's a long time, and there's
It
so much
is.
uncertainty, and you don't know if it's going to be like Alexander got really lucky, but you don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be a couple months or over a year. And more often than not, when you're waiting, like when you're on the transplant list and you're waiting, your quality of life is just not great, and you
Yeah.
are fighting for your life in a way. And so with that, I saw the need for more people to become organ donors. There's a statistic, it might not be perfectly right, but it's like 95% of Americans say they support organ donation, yet only 54% are organ donors. So kind of close that gap, because if you
Mm-hmm.
support it, why aren't you kind of like acting on that?
Probably
And then,
because people are scared.
yeah, a lot of people are scared or misinformed, or they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I thought I was an organ donor.
You know
And
what my mother told me one time?
hmm,
My mother, who is a wonderful lady, has a great big heart, and anybody who knows her loves her. She was like, I don't know if I should put down my organs to be donated because maybe when I go to the hospital, they won't. She really had a fear that maybe they wouldn't advocate and try to keep her alive because they wanted her organ. And I was like, let's just talk about that, Mom.
yeah,
Let's unpack that. Do you literally think that you're going to go in the hospital at 73 years old and there is this subverted plan to kill you early so that they can take your organs? And she was like, I think when she heard it, she realized, I think this is a fallacious fear of mine. But my mom, who's a cool person, actually said that.
yeah, yeah. And that it happens all the time. And so just to educate people, on how to become a donor and what it means to become a donor and things like that. Because some people would be like, oh, I'm too old or this or that.
Right.
Not true.
Bella, you and I, when we were talking on the phone, I was so excited. I was like, oh, I don't want to ask too many questions because I just was so curious. Take us back to before your brother knew he needed a heart, what was going on in his life? What caused his heart, or what was the issue? What was going on?
So he, well, to kind of backtrack a bit, he was
Yeah, I want you to.
freshman year of college,
Mm-hmm.
and he was studying for finals and just in his dorm room with his roommate. And then all of a sudden, he had like a severe pain in his chest, and he couldn't. His one thing led to another, and his roommate was like, "Okay, let's get you down to their health center or whatever on campus." And so his roommate starts taking him down, and eventually he ends up collapsing, like the flight below.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, okay, what do we do? And the medical team came in, and then they ended up taking him via ambulance to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And he then was checked out for like all sorts of things. And they ended up telling him, your heart is healthy. There's nothing wrong with your heart. But, you have panic attacks. Did you know that, do you ever suffered from anxiety before or anything like that? And we were like, no. Showed up at that time because luckily he went to college nearby. And
So they thought this event he had was a panic attack.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, and like we didn't know too much about panic attacks at the time, so we weren't aware that a panic attack can have similar symptoms.
It can feel just like a heart attack. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that it's so physical.
Mm-hmm.
And so they put him on.
I've had them.
It's very tough, and so
Yeah.
they put him some like medications and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And then
So they're putting him on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds.
yeah.
When he was at the hospital, did they look at his heart? Did they examine his heart or not?
They looked at it. I don't know exactly which test they did. They looked at enough where they deemed that it was healthy.
Okay.
But also they definitely didn't do the test that should have been done in order.
What test is that?
So normally to test, you need to do an EKG and then an
Yep.
echocardiogram. And that is most issues.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything, but most things should be caught by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And we think just because he's so young that, what 19-year-old is having a heart issue. And so we kind of went on thinking that obviously they were panic attacks. And so it happened again when he was at like his best friend's house,
Mm-hmm.
or so later. And, his best friends, the first situation, like it made sense. He was studying for the finals. And then, but being with his, best friends playing video games or whatever he was doing does not, you wouldn't
warrant a panic attack.
Exactly. And
you were telling me that, sorry, keep going.
And then I think what we talked about on the phone was the one after that. We were on a family vacation in Utah, and obviously I was there, wasn't doing quite everything because he just wasn't 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on a hike at Arches National Park, and
Mm-hmm.
we like coming back down the mountain, and everything was fine. It was hot out, but we were fine. And Alexander had another like panic attack. And so we do everything we're supposed to do, but this one was different. The other ones he recovered after. I didn't see the first two. From like what I've heard is he.
And what's the timeline between these events?
They were all, the first one happened, I think, mid-June.
Okay.
And the one I'm talking about now, Arches, was end of July.
Okay, so we're looking at maybe 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
He, collapses again, and we think, what is it? Like, what's going on? Because it's 45 minutes later, and he's still not on his feet again. And normally,
and describe the event, because I want people to hear it, because it was I had a very visceral reaction to you describing your family is going hiking, right?
Yeah.
Take us to it.
And so we're coming down Arches National Park. So it's hot, it's summer, you're in Utah, and you're on like the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking ahead with my sister and dad, and he was right behind us with my mom. And then also my mom calls out, and we turn around, and he's kind of like buckled over, like holding his chest, kind of. And we all turn around, run back to him, and kind of set him down. And it was just like pain, like he was just in so much pain and hunched over. And we put water on him, was giving him water, and then we gave him some medication that he was supposed to take after a panic attack. And he ended up throwing up, and it was just like a very physical pain, and he couldn't stand. And so then after like 45 minutes, we realized, okay, he's not getting better, and we don't know why, because normally like the after effects of one of these other like episodes he had, he was, after some time, he was able to get back up, and his wasn't at full strength, but he was able to go out and like do things. But after 45 minutes, like, he's not going to get down the mountain, the rest of the mountain.
How did you guys get him down the mountain?
Hmm?
How did you get him down the mountain?
So my sister and I ran down the rest of the mountain and searching for a park ranger, because we had no cell service. And so we're like, okay, you always see park rangers out there. So we're like, okay, we're totally just going to find one. It's going to be really quick. And we're going at pace, like pretty fast down the mountain, and we don't run into a park ranger. And we don't see one at the base of the trail. And so we hop in the car, and I start driving towards kind of like the exit of the park, because there's a part where there was like cell service.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, if we pass a park ranger, we'll stop them. If we see one, we'll go over there. If not, I'm going to keep driving until we get cell service and call.
Wow.
And never passed anybody. And I eventually called and was able to talk to somebody, and they sent a team out. And so a singular guy ran up the mountain, and he was the one who got there first. And then my sister and I drove back, parked the car, and ran back up. And then about like 10 or so minutes after we got back up, they sent like a full team it was like a long stretcher with a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So they could like traverse him back down the mountain to get him off.
So this is all by hand, because vehicles can't get up there.
Oh yeah, no, vehicles cannot get up there. So it was all by hand. And the first man who ran up there by himself, because he didn't have to worry about carrying the stretcher, he ran up and just ran some like vital tests on Alexander. And we're like, we know it's a panic attack. And because what we've been kind of versed in was, he's having panic attacks. You can't bring him to the hospital. Like, this is what it is. And so we went back down, and then we talked to the doctors. They looked over him again. He was feeling better, and we just went back to where we were staying that night.
What are you, and you told me something when we were in the car. What are you and your parents, mom and dad, are there, right?
Yeah.
So what conversation is happening behind the scenes between you, mom, dad, and your sister, if any? Or what conversations do you see happening maybe between them? What are we hearing?
There wasn't too much. It was just like, this is different than the other times. Like, he's not bouncing back as he did the other times, and we don't know what's going on. And we called his doctor again, and the doctor was like, oh, well, it must be, because he was having some other side effects. Like, he would lay down and he would cough and things like that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I think it's a side effect. And they're like real side effects to medications he was taking. And so
sure.
Like wean him off of them. So it was everything that was happening with him had another reason why it was happening, that was like perfectly valid, but
mm-hmm. That had nothing to do with the heart, which was the real issue.
Yeah.
So his heart issue is playing hide and seek here. People are not seeing it.
Yes.
Now, you told me your mom was like, she was a huge believer at that point, like something else is going on.
Yeah. So like it was like 2 or 3 days after that, maybe 3 days, we got back home. Mm-hmm. And he was supposed to be home for like a day and then go up to his friend's cabin in Leavenworth, like a town like a couple hours away. And we get back, and I was like, I just don't feel right. Something does not feel right. I don't think this is what's going on. And so she took him to our naturopath, who like drew his blood, and we've been seeing her for years. And then the next morning at like 6 a.m., she calls my parents. She's like, you guys got to get in here. Like, something's not right. And obviously, when anybody calls you first thing in the morning, something is definitely not right. And so they bring him in, and she's like, it's been a while, so I don't know quite everything to its.
No, that's right. You're telling us a story. We love it.
This is elevated, and this nothing is like this. He's not doing well. You need to imaging center right now, because something is very, very wrong. But we didn't know what was wrong. So we take him to an imaging center, and they're scanning him. And I got there at that point, and then the doctor pulls my parents aside, and that's when he tells them, his his heart is like 30 times the size it should be, and all of his other organs are way bigger than they should be, and like something is wrong. You need to go to the hospital. So then take him to the hospital. And
Wow.
when we found
How
out,
is, I'm sorry to interrupt. How is Alexander at this point? Is he scared? Is he aware of what conversations are happening around him, what doctors are saying, what the next step is? Is he aware?
I believe like he was aware of what was going on, but at the same time, it's just all this happening so sudden, and it's still don't quite know what it is.
Sure.
You're just going and doing and listening, but you're not really absorbing much. So at
Sure.
that point, he was that scared necessarily, but
Sure.
more trying to keep up with what was going on. Uh,
Go on. You were going to say
so
something.
when so when we got to the first hospital, they realized he had a bicuspid aortic valve, and he was born with it. And many people can live with a bicuspid aortic valve their whole life and not have an issue. Some people could have issues.
What does bicuspid mean? What does that mean? Do you know what it means?
Your valve should be like in a like simpler terms, there should be three little things going like
Uh-huh.
this.
Uh-huh.
Organ and his had only two.
Ah, okay.
So he was missing that valve, and that was therefore like the weakest part of his body.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point or another, he must have gotten some kind of infection that, a healthy like person, your body would have just taken care of it. It wouldn't have been an issue. It attacked his aortic valve because it was weak.
Ah, I get it. And that's a little tricky devil, because that would be hard to see, huh?
Yeah, it definitely can be seen.
Or to look for it, I should say. It'd be hard to look for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it should have been found when he first went in, because that was like a heart episode that was happening.
And they should have done an EKG or an echocardiogram, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, he would have needed a valve replacement. Like he needed a valve replacement no matter what, and that's all he should have needed was a valve replacement.
Is that a big surgery? Is that
Yes, a valve replacement is a big surgery, but compared to a heart transplant,
right?
Like, I mean, obviously it's a big deal, but what we went through was so much worse that it's like, a valve replacement.
So at this point, when they are discovering, they're like, there's something seriously wrong. Here it is. He has a weak heart. We know his heart is like 3 times the size. Therefore, his organs are also enlarged. Is it at that point they realize he needs to have a heart transplant?
No, at that point they realized he needed a valve replacement.
Okay.
And so then they put him in an ambulance and took him to the University of Washington Medical Center, because that's the cardiac unit where we are. And we're very thankful we did, because what came afterwards, if he was still at that first hospital, there's no way he would have survived, just because they don't have the same cardiac like tools that they do at University of Washington. And so they took him to University of Washington. At this point, it's like 1 a.m. or something. And we're all there, and they're like, okay, he needs a valve replacement, and he's deciding if he wants a mechanical one or a pig valve, and the differences between the two. And he's handling it really well, and just when the doctors told us that.
And Alexander is 19. He is 19 at this stage in his life.
Yes.
And you are how old?
At that point, I'm 21.
I just want people to know, because you are a young lady who is, your strategic motion afterwards is really astounding. Keep going, please.
Thank you. So at that point, they realized he needs a valve replacement, and he's deciding what he wants, and it's late, and they tell us that at this point, if he gets, he needs to get stronger before they can do the surgery. Basically, his body is just too weak. And so he's going to stay in the hospital maybe 3 or 4 days. And then once he's strong enough, we'll do the surgery, and, we'll take it from there.
Okay.
And we're obviously hoping for it to happen. And they tell us, the family members, go home. This is going to be a long process. You need to be in your own beds and getting actual sleep. Don't stay here, because you need your brains, and you need to be able to answer questions and do things. And so go home. That is what's best for him. What's best for him is not to stay here. And so that was hard, especially because that was the first night that he was in the hospital, and we weren't gone for long. We left like maybe 2 in the morning and came back first thing in the morning. So we weren't gone for very long. But when my parents got back to the hospital, so they got there before my sister and I did, to go send him back to get, they were going to like look at his heart, and we'll see you in an hour. We're just going to take a peek, kind of just see what's going on so we can, take the next steps. And so my parents say, goodbye to him at this time. Like my sister and I show up, and he ended up flatlining. And the doctors, like the code that's happening in the hospital.
Yes.
And we weren't in the room, but we were.
This is before surgery. This is during the time when he's supposed to be getting stronger for the surgery. He flatlines.
Yes.
And you guys are home.
No, we're at the hospital.
You're at the hospital. Okay.
We're at the hospital. Like outside his room enough that we think they are going into his room and something happened, but we don't know. We don't know what happened at all. And luckily they saved his life. He was, more or less dead for 90 seconds, and they were able to bring him back. They took him straight down for surgery because they couldn't wait at that point any longer. And they came, and we were all in this tiny, tiny little room. And it was my family, my grandparents showed up, and close friends showed up. And it was all of us huddled in this tiny room. And at that point, we don't know, like his chance of survival wasn't great. And we had no idea what was going to happen. And so we're waiting, and we're sitting in the room. It felt, I don't know how long it was. It was a long time, but it felt even longer. And eventually he survived. But he needed to be in, it was more or less a medically induced coma, and just to make sure his heart got stronger. And so, it's like, you just told him an hour ago, we'll see you in an hour, and he's still in a medically induced, coma.
Is that the surgery that allowed them to realize it was something more than the valve at this stage?
Not yet.
Okay. So keep going. I'm just tripping out all these things you had to go through, or Alexander had to go through too. That's.
So they knew his heart wasn't doing well at that point. Like that was very clear. But sometimes, I guess, I don't know, like the statistics behind it, but sometimes once you get that valve replaced, your heart will kind of resume
and kick in
activity. For instance, if this happened if we got the valve replacement right after that first episode in June, he probably never would have been in a medically induced coma, and he probably would have just, lived his life on from there.
So I just want to make sure people are hearing this. So he goes in for this surgery after he flatlines, right? And he goes in for the surgery, and they fix the valve.
Yeah. So
and in order to help his heart get stronger, they put him in a medically induced coma so that his heart can kind of regain the strength it needs during this time of extreme rest in his body. That's the idea.
Yes. So he was on ECMO, which was basically like pumping.
What if I was like, I know, I watch Grey's Anatomy, girl. I know ECMO. No, I'm joking.
So he was on ECMO, and that's what was keeping him alive. And the first time that day, we were able to walk into his room, and that was the first time we saw him hooked up to tons of tubes in his body and needles in his body, and obviously he was intubated. Like you walk in the first time you see it, it's really, really hard.
Shocking. I bet
it's really hard. And
especially you said something that was so beautiful. You said, we had told him, hey, we'll see you in a couple hours.
Yeah.
And here's your brother. He goes in with the expectation that I'll see my family in a couple hours. You guys have the expectation that you're going to see your brother in a couple hours. And then the seeing of him that you witness after this surgery is not, it's not him seeing you, and it's not you seeing him, really.
No.
Oh, I'm so sorry that your family had that experience.
Well, luckily it worked out in the end.
Well, keep going. Take us through, because I need some redemption right now, girl. I'm about to cry.
So, so the first time we see him, it was really, really tough. And like the first time many people, we were very lucky that we had a lot of family and friends that lived close by that could come to the hospital and visit him and visit with us. And it was kind of exhausting having so many people there, but at the same time, the days were going by because there was constantly somebody new that walked in. Sometimes you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody else about it.
Right.
Like, I don't want to, but looking back on it, I think it was so nice that we had that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not just sitting there. You feel like you're doing something. And so, the first time seeing him was really tough. He stayed like that for about a week. And
that's a long time.
Finally the doctors said, okay, we need to take him back in because he's still open. They don't want to like fully patch up your chest if they know they might have to go back in.
So it's still kind of open?
Like it's like, I don't know what they put. It's like it's open. It's definitely open. They put something like a barrier, between it, but it's open.
You could see it?
Like you see red. Like you see that he's not closed.
Oh, girl, I don't even know if I could do that. Go on. Mm-hmm.
So they take him back like a week after all of this, and they say, we're going to see if his heart if it's getting stronger. So if it's beating at, I forget what it was, but like X amount of percentage better than it was before, then we're going to keep him on ECMO a little bit longer and try to get like his heart to push through and like work.
So they have metrics. They know where they want the heart to be and where it needs to be for them to feel comfortable to take him off or take him out of the coma.
Yeah.
And so they're doing those tests, and I guess one of those tests is determined by his beats per minute.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're just kind of they're going in and seeing, and they take them in, so it's kind of like a surgery to see how his heart is doing. And when they told us, okay, so we are going in, we want him to keep his heart, obviously. And, these are, the metrics. This is what we're looking for. But if his heart isn't getting any better, and it hasn't gotten any better, or if it's gotten worse, we're taking it out and we're putting an artificial heart in. So he goes back for the surgery, and we're saying that we don't know if he's going to come out with an artificial heart, if he's going to come out and...
We have artificial hearts? I'm so ignorant on this.
Yeah. Like, so 4 years, I want to say, the artificial hearts have been around. And so...
Have you ever seen one?
Not like not in person, out of the body. I know it's just like your heart, but then it gets connected to you'll have these tubes in your abdomen, very large, and they connect, when you're in the hospital at least, they're connected to a big machine. And it's very loud. And that's kind of what is like beating this artificial heart inside of you. But then eventually you can go home with it if you're healthy enough. And you get like a backpack or a shoulder bag. And so...
so an artificial heart has to be used with those other apparatuses. You can't just be like, I have this artificial heart.
You're connected to like a box or something.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So keep going. I'm on the edge of my seat because you haven't told me this. So
yeah. So if you like go home with an artificial heart, you need to be like recharged every hour, and you can never be unsupervised. And like there's stories of people where it just it blanks out, and like you have to call your power company, and it's a really big deal. And so we want him to have to go home with that because it's scary. It is scary. It's scary for the
people taking care of you. It's scary for you and the people who have to care for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not know that, by the way. Thank you for telling us that. So it is an encumbered process to have an artificial heart. It's not just like, there's your heart. It's like, here's a whole new life. Where's your backpack? Where's the power? Do you have a backup power source? All this. Who's the person who's with you all the time? That's amazing. Go on.
So he came out of the surgery, and they told us that his heart was too scarred from I don't know if I mentioned this, but that one major attack that happened.
Episode, yeah.
A heart attack.
Yeah.
That heart attack scarred his heart so badly that it was never going to beat by itself again. And the doctors were like, the fact that he didn't A, die on the mountain, or B, die that night in his sleep is absolutely like
miraculous.
Yeah. They were like dumbfounded by those, let alone when he flatlined in the hospital. So he had defied a lot of odds at this point. And
he did. I mean, just think about it. He flatlined in the hospital. He had never flatlined outside.
Yeah.
He hadn't flatlined at school. He hadn't flatlined at home with his parents, what I'm learning through you is he had all of the circumstances, all of the right things happening that he absolutely should have and could have flatlined at any point.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. This is
He,
fascinating. Keep going.
so he, where was it? Oh yeah. So then they told us, his heart was too scarred. We put an artificial heart in. And so then, the first time you walk into his room with the artificial heart, at that point you're become like adjusted to seeing him like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything. We grow adjusted to whatever the situation is.
And there's a giant box, and there's just this noise, which is the noise of the artificial heart. And it's loud. It's pretty loud. And we walk in.
Does the chest have to stay open with that as well?
No, so it can be closed. I believe at that point they kept his open just because I think it was like blood clots that you can get. So they just don't want to close it and open it back up. And so I think having to go back in one more time before they closed it.
Mm-hmm. So then from that time of the artificial heart is in his body, and it's super loud, everybody's in the room. How do we go from the artificial heart to, I guess, at some point he gets a different heart? Please, what does that look like?
Yeah, so he, like maybe it was like 2 or 3 days after we got the artificial heart, they're like, we can, he can be woken up.
Mm-hmm.
So it took like 2 tries to fully get, everything out so that he could, breathe on his own. Like getting the ventilator out was not, it was not pretty. It took us 2 mornings to try, and they had us come to try to help him, but you feel like you're choking.
Yes.
And so it was really hard to just see him like that, and to see it the first day and it didn't work.
You feel like you're choking when it's going in or out, right?
Yeah, because they I forget what it was exactly, but they pull it out enough where they need to make sure that you can breathe on your own. But then also need to keep it close enough where if you're not breathing on your own,
we can get it back in there.
So you're kind of like you're like gagging almost. I think it was.
God, that is the worst feeling for me. The worst feeling in the world is throwing up.
Yeah.
It's the worst. Like I will do whatever I can not to do that because it's the worst feeling.
And especially when you don't know what's going on.
No.
So they ended up being woken up, but what we were not prepared for was the like hallucinations and stuff that would happen the next couple of days.
What? So, hallucinations?
So hallucinations and forgetting the word I'm looking for, but basically like he woke back up and he would see things and
hallucinations
and all these other things. And apparently that's really common with heart surgeries, and especially if you've been under that long. But we were not prepared for it.
What kind of things is he seeing?
Like he had like a made up like land, first of all, and then there was some things that are kind of like slightly comical, and then some obviously in kind of a messed up way, but back on it. But other things were not.
Hold on, you just went out. I couldn't hear you. You said some things are comical, and then others are. That's right.
He got really like upset at us. He was like, "You guys lied to me," and whatever. And he doesn't really remember much of this, and was getting like there's certain like nurses that he would love and certain nurses he didn't like, and then he, obviously it was not like him. It's not how he even normally act.
Right. Honestly, you can see his personality from the photos you sent me. He seems like he has a very kind heart, like a gentle spirit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually after like 2 or 3 days of that, he like came to, and we were able to actually talk to him. Because before we would try to talk, this isn't working. This isn't Alexander.
I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah. So they need to make sure everything was functioning, because he also had, so in the beginning when he was in the medically induced coma, he had a stroke. And so, that was one of the things, was to make sure, is he fine? Like,
right.
Is he okay? He was, thankfully. And so after that, he, came to, and he was, himself more or less. And we were also obviously so thrilled. And we just kind of had explained to him, basically you've been out for almost 2 weeks, and this is what happened. and like, this is what's going on. And he, he realized how close he got to losing his life. And instead of being in the mindset of, oh, like, why me? Why, like, why is this happening to me? It's more, he was in the mindset of, I'm so grateful to be alive, and I'm so lucky to be here, and whatever I can to get out of here. Which was, obviously, we were really, really thankful for that. That was his mindset instead of more of like a why me mindset, which is obviously very valid.
Yeah, it is, but you can't live in that space, right? If you live in the space of why me, you will not, that's not a growth position question. You won't grow. You will just end up feeling sorry for yourself and probably hating life. At some point you have to realize, okay, what is it meant to teach me? What now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now take us to I want to know, how do we get a heart transplant? How does that even happen? So at this point, is he put on the heart transplant list?
He wasn't put on it because they need to make sure your body is ready to get a heart. So obviously,
That's right.
It's a long time to get a heart, but for whatever reason, they put you on a heart transplant list and they get you one in an hour, which I don't think ever happened. But if that was the case, your body would need to be ready.
Right.
So I think
the same thing for my husband with a kidney transplant. Yeah. We like laugh when we watch television, and I love these medical shows, but we're like, he needs a kidney transplant, he needs a heart transplant. And somehow we're flying in with the heart, like same day. I'm like,
yeah,
we were on that list for a year. Yeah.
So Alexander, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks that he was, with the artificial heart, not on the transplant list. And then eventually they're like, you know what, you're strong enough to get put on the transplant list. And that's when, obviously at this time the time span between when he got the artificial heart to now, I've done, in my family, I've done a whole lot of research on, the statistics of getting organ donation, and then that organ donation fact I shared earlier about Americans and all of that, which is kind of like the premise of Alexander's Hope. But then they put him on the list. And at that point, I was living in California. I fly back thinking, because they're like, he's going to be on the list for like 4 months to a year and a half or more. So, you can't, just be here forever. And so he's going to be here, and then he's eventually going to go home with the artificial heart. And, this is what it looks like. So I was in the hospital all day, every day for whatever that was at that point.
So you guys are preparing yourself for your brother to come home with the artificial heart and all of the things that accompany that.
Yeah, and we're like getting trainings on the artificial heart and all this stuff. I go back to California, and then 8 days after he gets on the transplant list, they found him a match.
Shut up. Wait, pause. People need to hear that. 8 days after he gets on the heart transplant list, they find him a match. Yeah. That in and of itself is miraculous. That is not common. I mean, that's a heart. My husband, which one can't live without a heart. My husband had a kidney transplant. One can live with only one kidney. So you can be a live donor of this. It was a very difficult thing, because the list they're pulling from are cadavers, right? People who have said, I will be an organ donor, and who die. And we are able to harvest and get that wonderful organ. And it really does save lives. But I need people to hear how many things had to line up at the right time, and the blood match, the antibodies, all of these things can't be too much, can't be too little. Is the blood, like, I always wondered initially, they were like, yeah, there has to be a blood matching. And I was like, why? The organ will be emptied of blood. Why do we care? Because the body knows what type of blood was in the body that it came from. And if it's not a match, it will fight it like nobody's business. Isn't that interesting? Even though they completely empty it of all the blood. So I guess why I'm harping on this is unprecedented. This is unheard of. So 8 days.
Yeah. So 8 days. And he, so I guess they told him when he was in the hospital room alone. And then he was like, I don't want to just call them to tell them, like, my mom's going to be here soon. So he waited. My mom got there. He told her. And then I think, like, called my dad or something. Meanwhile, like, I am still just in California. I've been there for only a couple days. And he texts me in a family group chat. And he's like, I forget what he wrote, but he's like, they found me a heart. And I was like, okay, this is like some awful, that's just a terrible joke. I was
Right.
like,
Don't joke like this.
text me when you get a heart. Like, that's not how that works.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, either this is real or this is like the weirdest like joke he has ever said. And I call him. I obviously pick up the phone. My hands are shaking, and I think I said, like, "Is it true?" or like something like that. And immediately from the tone of his voice, I could tell that he got a heart. And I was just like bawling, and I booked the next flight back home. And then he got a surgery.
Say it again.
Oh, the next day he got his surgery.
The next day, he had the heart transplant, because that's what I was going to ask you. How much time elapsed between that? 24 hours. The next day, he gets it. And do we know anything about the donor? Young, old? Do we know anything?
We were told younger, but that's kind of broad.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted his heart to be under 40 years old, is what they were hoping for.
Yeah, I know. That's what they wanted for my husband as well. I totally understand. Those are ideal, but that's not to say old people out there.
Oh,
we
no.
need, because they can transplant veins.
Yeah.
I mean, eyes, retinas. It's amazing. Just things that you would never even think of, right? So next day he gets his transplant. Keep going, girl.
So he gets his transplant. He was out for a little bit, but then I want to say maybe a month after his transplant, he was out of the hospital. And the first year obviously is really tough. You have to wear a mask everywhere you go, and you have to be like, he had 16 or 18 heart biopsies that first year, and obviously you have to take all this medication for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And
like 30, 40 pills.
You got a second chance at life, so you're so grateful for that, but it's just an adjustment. And
so go on.
So he's doing well.
He's doing well today. That's what I want to know. How is Alexander doing? He's doing well. Is he still in school?
No, so he's taking some classes. He went back to school after everything happened for a little bit. I think a year after everything. And it was just, I think at that point, it's kind of when it started to hit him mentally, because before he didn't really have the mental components of someone who has gone through all of that, especially at his age. And then he got back to school, and it's kind of like, well, like, someone died for me to live, and
I know.
like, what am I supposed to be doing? How am I supposed to live my life now that I have that? And he just kind of felt like he didn't know what he was supposed to be doing.
I'm so glad he had that process. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so he ended up leaving the school he got, but now he's still taking some classes and just kind of trying to figure out what he wants to do. But he's happy, and he's doing really well.
So he's happy. So I want to ask you a few questions, because it will kick us off in about 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So I want to know, how did you go, man, I need to do something about this? And what made you think that you could just create a nonprofit?
So I'd always wanted to work for an international nonprofit. I had done a lot of work with international nonprofits in my youth and throughout college, and I majored in international relations and marketing. And my international relations major had an emphasis in nonprofit management, because like that is what I wanted to do. And so I at that point, when everything was happening with my brother, I had just graduated college, and I was in this marketing certification course for like a semester before I kind of like got my real job and figured out what I was going to do. And, I was looking at the nonprofits, and I was like, all of these jobs, like you have to have like such a resume to work with these nonprofits for any job that I would want to do. And I was like, I don't have any of that experience. Like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And then, fast forward, everything happens to Alexander, and we're looking at like organ donation and all this stuff. And we're like, something needs to be done. And that, coupled with heart screenings, Alexander was young, and if he got his heart screened, he never would have gone through what he went through. And no family should have to go through what we went through, or any individual. And so I wanted to do something about that. And so, I talked to my parents, and they're like, you could definitely do it. But then I was like, I'm not going to be making any money from it, and I'm just about ready to, have to get my first real job. Is this something I can do with, like a real job? And what is that going to look like? And I ended up meeting with one of our family friends, and I just talked with her a little bit, and she actually donated. She was a living kidney donor, so she had a history of like
That's my husband's best friend is a living kidney donor, and he's the recipient.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, keep going.
oh, and so she just, I think she was just like the voice I needed to hear at that time. And she told me, why are you not doing this? Like you could do it. Like just kind of was like that nudge that I needed to actually
A little push. Yeah.
you have, you know what to do, and no one knows how to do every single thing when they start something like this. She's like, you just go and do it and you'll figure it out.
That's right.
Like, oh, whoa.
And so what does it look like? Like, so how long ago did you form it?
Well, I guess like the ideas, chatting about it and like in my mind kind of started in September of 2017. So it was less than 3 years ago.
Okay. And
then like getting your 501c3 takes a really long time.
I know.
So once we
got
that was in March. It was just over a year ago is when we actually got it, but we were operating as a nonprofit a year before that. Mm-hmm. So spring of 2017, we were operating as a nonprofit.
And what, wanting to encourage earlier screening of young people, what does that look like for you? What does that look like in the medical world to doctors? What are they hearing and how are they improving that?
Yeah, so we were really fortunate first we knew we wanted to do youth heart screenings, and actually the doctor who did CPR on my brother to save his life was the one I would talk with, and he was like, this is what I want to do. I think young people need their heart screens, and this is my vision, and this is what we need to be doing. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
A brilliant man, and we're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. We're meeting for months, and finally he was like, I just talked to another cardiologist at the University of Washington, and he partners with this other nonprofit that is doing just that. Like, why don't we do that? Like, work with them or reach out to them. So I was like, okay. So I reached out to them, and they're called the Nick of Time Foundation. And we started talking. They're just so nice. And they told me what they do. And they're like, we've helped other nonprofits across the U.S. I think it was 17 other nonprofits start what we do, basically, and do youth heart screenings.
But what does that look like? Give me a scenario. So I go into the doctor, I'm 15 years old, I'm meeting, I'm going to my pediatrician. What does the early screening look like? Do I have to have had a pain or something, or is it just like a part of our care and of a young human being?
So us and this whole big group of nonprofits throughout the U.S. are trying to work towards youth heart screening being in a physical of it, as it should. And with the equipment we have today, it doesn't take very long, and it should be something everybody gets. But until then, Alexander's Hope and the Nick of Time Foundation and all these other nonprofits are going to do what we do to save young lives. So our screenings that we do are at high schools, and they're free. And so we'll go to a high school, and normally it's mostly just the kids at that school that attend, but anybody is more than welcome. The prime age we're looking at between is 14 to 24. There's a volunteer there that wants to get screened. They can get screened, obviously. And they partner with the University of Washington Medical Center that have doctors there, cardiologists that, there's a doctor that worked on, with Alexander, who's there every single month at our screening.
Oh.
So what it looks like is you sign up ahead of time. The school will reach out. There's a wait list, and then eventually the day that comes in, we're there. Everything's all set up. The kid already has a time slot. You get people up at 10 a.m. They check in, and then they get their blood pressure done by, normally it's local firefighters, and then they'll do height and weight, and they'll come back and get an EKG done. That, for the system that we use, it takes less than 5 minutes, and I place EKG leads. Anybody can learn how to place the leads. I don't read them. The doctors do that.
Right. You're looking really good. No.
But I we'll have a bunch of people back there, and we'll place the leads. There's a boys section and a girls section, and after they get the EKG done, they will go back out to the main area, the school gym, and they will learn CPR and how to operate an AED.
Look at you, girl! Wow, that is remarkable.
Then
I need you to hear that, because I know whenever we're doing in our lives, it's just what we're doing. It's just what we're doing. It doesn't feel grand or anything. It just feels like a part of our lives. So I want you to know And I told you this on the phone that night when we met. That is not a normal reaction. What you're doing is not a normal and standard creation of a young human being. It is remarkable. And there are so many people who are benefiting, who will and who are benefiting from it. So I just want you to know it's really remarkable. I'm impressed beyond, because I know that there are people whose lives are changed. I know that there are people who you're screening, who you've already screened, who actually had a heart issue and didn't know anything about it. You know, like we've seen too many of those. Like, he was this young, you know, basketball player. He was taking it down to the hoop and he just dropped dead on the court. Mm-hmm. And we're all like, what? He was healthy. He was clearly, there was an underlying something that just wasn't diagnosed because we didn't look at it. I mean, even to the fact that our daughter, it didn't dawn on me. I'm a mom, and our daughter pointed out the fact that she had never had her blood drawn in any of her what do you call it? Your physical. The physical didn't even take the blood and look at it. Isn't that interesting? And I'm like, but as adults, when we go into our doctor, the first thing they do is take a CBC. They take a full panel of our blood. So I get what you're saying. A more probative look at youth healthcare is very important. So tell me this. Okay, so your organization exists, and I clearly see now how it's affecting people's lives in the most positive way. I want to talk now about you before we get kicked off here, because you are really phenomenal. What are you doing right now? Just in your everyday, what are you doing?
My everyday. So, I mean, well, for Alexander's Hope, right now we just hired on unpaid interns, which is I'm really excited about. So,
you should be.
I am very excited because I do a lot. I mean, all of the back end stuff. So,
right.
Board of directors and on a website, and I deal with our finances, and let me plug my phone in really quick before something happens.
Do that.
And so I deal with, all of that, and I have so much going on that I know I need to do things like, be better on our social media and write blog posts and do things I know are important to get.
So Alexander Hope is your full-time job.
I mean, yes, but it's not. I'm a real estate agent, and that is how I.
That's how we eat.
Money, yeah. Because I don't take anything from the nonprofit, so that's what I do. And but I'm busy with all this other stuff, and I was like, okay, I need somebody because I've people that are looking at our back end SEO stuff and all this stuff. They're like, you don't need to be doing blog posts and this and that. I was like, guys,
you're slow it down. I got another job. I
know they're important, but if this bill doesn't get paid or if this doesn't happen, we're going to be shut down.
That's right.
So this is what I need to do.
So now those interns, they'll be writing fools, girl, writing fools.
I am very excited. They start next Monday.
Yes.
So it's very, very good.
I love it.
They're supposed to be helping with some fundraising stuff and things like that, which is really exciting. I planned a big 5K race that was this past February. That was a big thing for me. I'm a huge runner.
I know. I saw that. I wanted to touch on that. Half marathons and marathons. Tell us, girl.
Yeah.
What's the next run you're going to do?
So I don't know. Due to the fact that everything has been canceled, I was supposed to have.
But they're doing a lot of virtual runs right now.
Oh yeah. I was like, I don't know.
I know. I'm a part of this group, and I just saw a virtual. It was a virtual 100 mile. I was like, what? Virtual? I don't have that in me. But it was something amazing. Okay, I want to ask a couple more questions. So you're a real estate agent. That's how we pay the bills. But you run this organization, and you guys are making strides. You just got your first interns. It's a big flipping deal. We're going to start seeing you more on social media and communication, because now you have the bandwidth. That's the hope, because you can't do it all. You can't do it all. But I think it's brilliant that this young lady, you came up with this to do this, and it was based on your brother's hardship. Okay, it's going to go. So I want to ask a few questions about you, young lady. What sound or noise do you love?
Sound or noise? I don't know. I mean, I listen to a lot of music, but I guess that's not really.
No, it is. Music is a legit.
my little dog when he runs on the hardwood floors.
Oh, dog running on hardwood floors. Oh, I love it. What sound or noise don't you like?
I don't like anything like really high pitched or like yelling, anything too loud like that.
Okay. What is your favorite word?
Hmm. I've always loved the word hope, which is kind of what I incorporated in the nonprofit.
I like it too. So these are questions I got from James Lipton. I used to watch a show called Inside the Actors Studio, and I loved it. I make fun of it because it's kind of like this big low budget talk show, but I adored it. And he would just interview actors, and it was before social media, so it was our time to kind of peek in behind the curtain and really hear from their hearts. And so I just love the questions. The next one is, what's your favorite curse word?
Favorite curse word? I don't know. I mean, probably shit. That is
That's a good one.
Most said.
That's one I say a lot too. Okay, if heaven exists, what do you want God to say when you get there?
I guess something reflective of my character, or something that I was able to like bring to the world to do like that was beneficial to others, I guess.
5 years from now, what do we want to see with Alexander's Hope?
Oh, I have lots of plans. So I would love to see that there's some sort of, obviously collaboration with us in Nick of Time Foundation, that we have either a space or, one of those like vans or something like that where we are able to screen people a couple days a week. And that it is people of all ages and free. And that we'll have volunteer doctors and just kind of like a budget in a way to be able to do that and screen more and more hearts.
I love it. Thank you so much, Bella. You're a lovely soul, and it's people like you that make the world a better place. And what is so cool is I've just introduced you to people. So now you give us hope. We hope that there are people like you out there. And in fact, there are. Her name is Bella Chaffey. Thank you, Bella. You have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.